Welcome to Razorcast, brought to you by the people of Razor Metal Reviews. Well, that's us.
It is.
Once again, I'm Chris.
I'm also still Chris.
You're still Chris. You copied me. Well, then again, saying that, I copied you. But today, on our first episode of Horns Up, we're going to be taking a back look at Avenged Sevenfold's self-titled album. And, well, quite a controversial one, really, when it came out.
Yeah, most interesting, I think, in some respects of their albums.
Very. I mean, obviously they cancelled their tour back in 2006 in the fall to go into the studio to record this. So piss off your fans, why not? But that's them. I suppose off the back of City of Evil, fucking huge album that was.
Yeah.
Absolutely massive. On the road for 16 months doing it, hence why they cancelled the tour and thought we'll go and produce something new. But, no, it's, where do we begin?
Oh, well, I suppose, like you say, like a bit of background, I suppose they cancelled their tour, went into the studio to record this one. I didn't know until you told me 10 seconds ago that this was self-produced.
Self-produced. No producer. They had they used the same producer on the last two albums. I can't remember the name. It's out there somewhere.
It is.
You have to find it. But no, this was self-produced. But for the album itself, very controversial when it was released. New sounds. I think still finding them with their feet in a lot of sense. Even though City of Evil was an absolutely mega huge tune. But wow, what's your feelings?
It was a departure, I think. I think I was sat there listening away, and then I couldn't help myself, and I started listening to other Avenged records, and actually, there isn't an Avenged record. Avenged Sevenfold never stay still. They never have.
No, never have.
They've got maybe you could argue they've got a core sound or a core.
Yeah, there's a huge core sound there. I mean, when you look at the self-titled album to City of Evil, very, a lot of solos, a lot of hooks,
But it's still a progression. It's still a step forward. The same way that there was a step forward from Waking the Fallen to City of Evil. And then if you look beyond that, the differences and the different elements that they brought into the music.
I mean, when they first started as a band, they were 19 at the time. So still in high school at the time, or just finishing high school. But so then, released their first album at the age of 19. And, well, you get on to City of Evil being the third album. And then the fourth album, which is the self-titled. But the sound of it, it was, I think, as we said, still trying to find their feet, very experimental. And when you look back at the tracks, I mean, you still had, so from the City of Evil track, you had Seize the Day, which was also a massive ballad song, which they then also did in the end track of this, for Dear God.
Yeah, I don't think that they've definitely not. Their fans were not sort of unaccustomed to hearing Avenged try their hand at a ballad. But then any band that wears Guns N' Roses as an influence on their sleeve so much, it's got to be sort of ready to take that plunge and try it. Yeah. Interestingly, you said that this kind of was panned a little bit. This was given a bit of a kick in at the time.
Oh, it was at the time, yeah.
Critically, I mean, it was kind of, people got pretty pissy about this.
Oh, pretty much.
Listen back to it, in the cold light of day now, do you think it's justified that it got a kick in?
Depends on how you look at it. If you look at it as a progressive stepping stone for them, then no. They experimented. They tried their hand at new things. As I said, Dear God was essentially a country song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They had some friends in another country act called Big and Rich.
Right.
And so that was almost like a homage to them, to their friends. But it was something new, completely different. And then the same again with, which one was it? I haven't got it on my list. Where has it gone?
Little Piece of Heaven?
Little Piece of Heaven, that's the one.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. It's right there, actually. But no, it is. It's like a Tim Burton film, isn't it?
It's crazy. And just those two things, just those two songs alone that you've picked out, sort of fly completely against the kicking that it got at the time. People complained about this album from bits and pieces I've read. People were really pissy because they said, "Oh, they've dumbed down. They've done their sound down.
Yeah.
They've chopped the lengths of the tracks. They've made them more simplistic. The riffs are easier, sort of thing." And then to say that, okay, maybe the big hitters or the first 6, 7 tracks, maybe they're not as intricate as some of the stuff that they've done, and there's no. I always want to call it Suicide Note Part 1 and 2, but it's because it kind of is the same song.
Oh, massively.
But to say that they dumb down, and then to have songs that are pushing them in completely new directions into country and western and into goth fairground.
Well, yeah. I think which is the one? I think it was it Scream or was it Almost Easy? Starts off with the no one that was critically acclaimed. Actually, starts with the organ. Again, completely different for a band. Nobody ever really thinks, should I go and grab an organ? Let's go and grab an organ. Let's stick this in it.
Yeah, you know what this needs? Organs.
Yeah, but not only that, they also produced it using a full orchestra at the time.
Yeah, that you hear that all the way through the track. There's bits of strings, there's bits of orchestral sort of stuff brought into it. And from what I've read, weirdly enough, I think that is in a large part. I think a large part of that is the rev. I think the rev
The rev was a big part of that, but then again, so was Zachary Vengeance.
Right.
He had a massive part in that. It finding the orchestra and stuff, because it just gave the album more of a whole sound.
Yeah.
It really pushed the album forward, really sort of emphasised the songs.
Yeah.
But I think in itself, it's just their whole album is different, but it's the band still progressing. They've had one sound from the City of Evil that everybody knew.
Yeah. I think by the time they toured City of Evil, if you look at the sort of landscape, new metal had died a death kind of thing, and this kind of new wave of bands, the Avenged, the Triviums, Kill Switches, their sounds, those 3 bands particularly, their sounds were being copied left, right, and centre.
Oh yeah,
badly copied most of the time.
Oh yeah, which was essentially the end of new metal, really.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely surprised that a band like Avenged, if you look at the stuff that they did with the Grammys recently, refusing to turn up because they thought that metal was underappreciated.
Yeah.
They're a band that give 0 fucks, really.
Which is fair. Which goes, reading back, a lot of that's actually M. Shadow. Because apparently he's very sort of this dark character. Like behind the scenes, they've always called him M. Shadows because he was the dark character behind a lot of the things that they'd done. Very controversial with lyrics and stuff like that. But
this, and again with the lyrics, I found. I know we're jumping all over the place here a little bit, but it's just because my brain has almost gone into scattergun mode because it feels a little bit like that's what they've done on this album.
Well, that's what it was, essentially.
Like, oh, we want this on there. Oh, we want that on there. Oh, it's kids in sweet shops.
It is. Huge.
But weirdly enough, people complained that it was more radio ready.
Well, when you look at it in the sense of critical acclaim and Almost Easy, both huge hits for the band.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely massive. And after Almost Easy was so huge at the time. As soon as it was radio ready, it was massively so. Back in 2009, when they just released it, there was the American football, I think it was the college football out there.
Yeah.
They had a halftime show with I think the university is called USC, which is the University of South Carolina.
Yeah.
And they have a what they called it, a marching band, and they performed that song at the halftime show.
Did they?
Just after that song was dropped.
Jesus.
And what was it, about 2 years after? No, a year after it dropped.
Yeah. And
I don't know, to see that they think that metal's underappreciated. I mean, in a sense of the Grammys, I can see that. But as a band, they have got such an influence on the kids in the last sort of 10 years, more so than any band out there at the moment.
Yeah, quite possibly.
You look at any kids' playlist these days, they're guaranteed to have at least 1 or 2 Avenged Sevenfold songs. So, but going back to the album, obviously this was the final one the Rev appeared on.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Very upsetting at times with the band. The band, once released this album, and obviously with the passing of the Rev, they were at a bit of a standstill. They didn't know whether to carry on with the band or not.
Mm.
But, I mean, thank God they did carry on, because...
Yeah, but I get that. I get why they struggled so much.
Yeah.
I mean, he was such a massive presence, and you can see that in them. You can see that in the videos. You can hear that in their music. You can.
Oh, he done a lot of vocals for the tracks.
Yeah, and,
huge.
You can hear him all over this album as well. There are some. He's one of the sort of people that I picked out in this, that even for an album that is apparently quote unquote more radio friendly, more sort of. They've sort of shaved the edges off of it slightly. They've, rounded it off a little bit. There are some bonkers drum fills. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
I love. I think it's the start of. It's the start. It's in Almost Easy.
Yeah.
And he just goes to town, just tapping away on those cymbals.
Everything.
It's so overblown and so over the top. It's totally unnecessary.
Well, he's looking for spots that nobody else is looking at.
Yeah, it's all totally unnecessary. So much of his drumming is totally unnecessary, which is why it's so fucking brilliant.
Oh god, yeah, and that's why he was always a key figure. When you look back at the drummers in the past sort of 10 years, and you look at the way that the Rev produced songs to how other bands had, he is constantly looking for spots to fill.
Yeah.
There is never a dull moment in an Avenged Sevenfold song.
Do you think he's the only from that time period, from those big bands that came out at that time, this kind of, that metalcore kind of, or the newer,
the new sort of metalcore.
Do you think, obviously, Zaki and Zaki and Sinister,
Sinister.
Were legit guitar heroes.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Trivium had legit guitar heroes, like Matt Heffy and
Matt Heffy won.
And Corey.
I think around that time he won Shredder of the Year.
Yeah, they had legit guitar heroes, and Adam D from Killswitch and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
The one thing that those other bands in that scene missed was a drum hero.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I think the Rev was the only one that you could hold up and just go, he's the one that kids are going to look to and go, fuck, I want to pick up a set of drumsticks.
And I think at the time as well, when you look at it, you had drum heroes in the sense of like Mike Portnoy, who they ended up doing the next album with, but nobody really sort of. It's like the drummers became the bass player. Nobody cared about the bass player. Then it's almost became that nobody wanted to know the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
But to have the Rev as such an influence in a band, with not only obviously the drumming, the vocals, but he had a huge part on, especially this album, with writing the songs. I think reading on my list here, he had a hand in writing every single song bar critical acclaim.
Right.
And for a drummer. Who else does that these days?
Yeah, I mean, he's. You've only got to look at Slipknot.
Yeah.
Joey Jordison was very much like that.
Yeah, I think that's the only. That might have been the only other drum hero at the time.
No, but I mean, by 2007, sort of. Excuse me. Slipknot have already established themselves. They were well on their way to being a huge band.
Oh yeah.
I mean, 2 years later, they played. They absolutely smashed downloads.
Oh, huge.
So they were already well on their way. Rev was the young upstart, really. He was kind of kicking at their heels. I think on this album, I think he is superb.
Yeah.
I know that obviously from the next album, from Nightmare, I know that Portnoy went and pretty much they reckon he pretty much just tracked his drums. Yeah. As the Rev had written them, as the Rev intended them. So it was the drumming was great, but it had Portnoy's flavour on it.
Yeah.
And
big time.
Wasn't quite the same. So this, I mean,
well, I think they only took Portnoy out for the US tour, and then they dropped him.
No, he did. No? He did do the UK tour.
Oh, he did.
I saw him at Birmingham.
Right, okay.
That was the most mental gig I've ever been to. I'll be honest with you.
Really?
Out of all the gigs I've ever been to, I was the most exhausted to that, because I figured two things out that night. One, I'm old as fuck. And two, young people are mental. They are mental. I had people
by
climbing.
any chance, were you pissing at this point?
No, the whole crowd was a pit. There wasn't anywhere on the standing section that you could stand that wasn't like moving. It was like a tide.
Yeah. Push backwards and forwards.
Push backwards, forwards, left, right, up, down. I don't think I stood upright for the entire gig.
So you came away with it like seasickness.
Oh, I came over seasickness, and my calves felt like somebody had stabbed them repeatedly. It was horrendous. It was a great gig, though. Portnoy was cool. It was cool to see him on stage, but it wasn't the rev.
Yeah. But going back to sort of the influence of these songs, so like Critical Acclaim, to this day, they still use the Rev's voice on that song. So when they perform live, it's a way of honouring him.
Yeah.
When he sang on Critical Acclaim, the band turned from this, and ever since then, since 2009, they have used his voice as a backing track. And it's great to see that, obviously you're keeping the past alive.
Yeah.
It's like these days with Metallica, there's always references to Cliff Burton.
Yeah.
When I saw Metallica a few months ago, they did a homage to Cliff Burton.
Yeah.
So Robert Trujillo ended up playing Orion live with with the cubes above the stage, with images of Cliff everywhere.
With Cliff, yeah.
And oh my god, that was emotional.
Epic,
and obviously being a massive Metallica fan, it was huge. But going on, you have obviously Almost Easy was a huge radio hit, wasn't it, at the time? Absolutely huge. And I think even to this day, you're not going to go to an Avenged gig and not hear that song.
It's funny you say about them playing live in this album. Obviously, when people look back, this is one of the albums that people put a bit lower down in the pegging. Now, if you look at the track listing on this album, when I went to see them, there's on this album alone, there's probably, if I went to see them and I didn't see them play at least 4 of the tracks off this album, I'd be pissed.
Oh gosh,
to see, I love Critical Acclaim.
Critical Acclaim is a must.
Beast.
Almost Easy
is
huge,
epic. Yeah, it is massive.
Yeah.
Afterlife is obviously just huge. And I'll be honest with you, Gunslinger is my favourite on this album.
Yeah,
because I love it. I love the little delicate start, and then the big scream and the big drums and everything just drives in.
Yeah, I think for me, Gunslinger is a massive tune, absolutely massive. And there's obviously the difference in, the change of pace halfway through the song. And you don't get that from bands. You get a band these days, and they're just one sound all the way through, same melody, same all the way through. But no, it's a huge track, and again, it goes back to the whole. Starts off as a ballad and then just rips one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at this album, I know, and we keep coming back to it and keep saying it, and it's the reason we're talking about it, because lots of people gave this a hell of a kicking. But I'd be surprised if anyone sat down, anyone who likes Avenged Sevenfold, or has even got a passing sort of interest in Avenged, I'd be very surprised if they could stick this album on.
Yeah.
And they felt they needed to skip any of the first 7 tracks.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, going from when we discussed about reviewing this, I knew City of Evil, I've known of The Nightmare, which was, unfortunately, at the time, I wasn't too fussed on, because I'd gone and found other music at the time. And then Hail to the King, huge. Absolutely huge. But this, I've gone back to this and listening to this, possibly my favourite Avenged album.
Wow.
Like, possibly. Just for the fact that they kept it real. It's self-produced.
Yeah.
Which is huge for a band. To go into a record studio and go, right, we are going to do this, and we're going to do this our way. Yeah. And to come out with something with, I think is just incredible.
I mean, on the Hail to the King front, Hail to the King is not, by any stretch of the imagination, my favourite. I think it's ploddy. I mean, we could talk about it another day, but I think it's a bit ploddy. I think it's a bit metal by numbers. I think they kind of phoned it in a little bit.
A little bit. I think they made it sort of radio ready, didn't they?
Yeah, but I'm not going to diss them for that because it made them massive.
Oh my god, did it?
I mean, it made them fill stadiums.
You know, and look at Download again. You know, they absolutely ripped it at Download.
I mean, that's the that album. The success of that album is the reason they headlined Download.
Oh, big time.
It's not my personal favourite, but I don't think without this album, they would never have got there.
Never. No, and it goes again with going back looking at this for when they writ it with the Rev's influence on it, to then going on into Nightmare. You know, they had tried to replicate a sound for what Rev had done in the past, and you know, and they can still do it today. They still replicate what the Rev had left off.
Brooks is great. I mean, the new drummer Brooks, he's a great drummer. He's great live. He can play the notes. He can play everything. You know, beat for beat. When I went back to this record, I did realise how much I missed hearing the Rev.
Yeah, just
hearing his vocals, hearing his style of drumming, just that kind of. I've got. It sounds like he's got 400,000 drums in front of him, and I love that. Like, my favourite Avenged Sevenfold is when, like, it's basically when they sound like just pissed up, kind of swinging from a chandelier in some weird goth, like, cowboy bar, booting people's pipes over and starting fights.
No, that's exactly it.
That's how I love Avenged.
Yeah.
And I think on parts of this album, I think on most of this album, they nail it.
Oh, they nail everything that they've, you know, put their hands onto this.
There are bits of this album that I don't care for. I respect, but I don't care for.
There's, I mean, the three songs that I haven't actually looked into much was Unbound, The Wild Ride, Brompton Cocktail, which I think is a good song.
I like Brompton Cocktail, to be fair,
and Lost. Those are the only three that I've...
It ends... This album, I think, is heavily weighted on it's front-ended, I think. First 6 or 7 tracks, I think, are pretty... I mean, great to... They vary from solid to great.
Yeah.
I think it dies off at the end. And I get that loads of people love A Little Piece of Heaven. And I love the fact that it's full Tim Burton. I mean, it sounds like it should be on Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Which cracked me up because when I wrote my notes for this, I accidentally wrote Nightmare on Elm Street, and then I was like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
But when you look back at it and you go, Tim Burton, yeah, no, you can see that.
Yeah, but it's on that note that there's something else that when you put this whole album together, yes, it's a bit bitty.
Yeah.
And
it is all over the place.
It is all over the place, but I actually got a vibe from this, and it's a weird one. You might turn around, you might think that I'm going potty, but on that kind of slightly gothy kind of tinge thing, I actually think if you stuck this album, if you put all the tracks of this album in like a 90s kind of Tarantino style kind of romance killer flick, like something like Natural Born Killers or like True Romance or something like that. Something like that, yeah. Because it's kind of, it's like this album's kind of got a big shit-eating grin on its face.
Yeah.
But it will jab you in the kidneys with a knife.
It will.
Like,
look, that's a good analogy of it. I mean, it is, like you say, it is.
It's still quite sinister in it.
What it is. I mean, looking back at some of the other songs, like Afterlife, like this is what was said by, I think it was who was it who said this? I think it was Vengeance who said this.
Mm-hmm.
The song is about a man who dies early and finds himself in heaven.
Yep.
Upon entering, he realises that he has too many things to do on Earth, and to go back and make it right, he has to escape from the afterlife.
Right.
Well, you know, there's the massive goth influence on it all.
Yeah,
you go to heaven. I need to get back to Earth because there's
things like the prime example of what I'm talking about with the kind of the Tarantino stuff is Scream. That song, it's fun. It's so much fun. It's you know, you listen to that if you were in a rock club and that came on, you'd bang your head, you'd down your pint, you'd have a lovely, lovely time.
Yeah,
but it's pretty sinister.
It is.
Like,
oh yeah,
which I love about it. I love that sort of playing around with the kind of metal. I know we have this debate about metal and its how serious it should be or not. Metal should have a tongue firmly in its cheek, I think. It should have a sense of humour.
Yeah, it should.
It shouldn't all be sense of humour, but it should have a sense of humour. We'll come on to that another day. When I can have a proper rant about it.
Yeah, okay.
But
I will do my best to defend, but
it might just be me yelling, going, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What
with you leaning over and punching me in the face." Because, Hailstorm are good.
Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, I might turn into some sort of Tarantino character.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah. I'll put "stuck in the middle of you" on and then go to town.
Yeah, just makes it all better. But yes, but if you put this album out, say today, sort of what we're looking at, 11 years on now, where do you think it would stand?
Things have moved on. I think things really have moved on. I think if you put this out now, we've got a wave of nostalgia. If this was a brand new band,
yeah,
if this was a debut album.
As a debut album, I think it'd be brilliant.
If it was a debut album, people would hail this, particularly in 2007. If this was a debut album from a band in 2007, people would go, "Holy shit balls! This is fucking brilliant."
It's the fact that the band are, experimenting with their sound.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you come to a second album, which way do you go?
Mm-hmm.
Well, depending on the debut album, is the way you go with the next one.
Yeah.
And
this is their fourth. The fact that they've gone, let's experiment on the second one, and then gone, that was quite cool. Let's experiment again on the third.
Yeah.
Let's experiment again on the fourth. Then they did it on the fifth, and then the sixth.
The whole thing has been an experimental ride.
Yeah,
they've always changed.
I think it's great that they push the boundaries and they push themselves.
Keeping a fresh sound every time sells out stadiums. Tenfold. Or sevenfold, however you want to see it. But for a band to just say fuck you to the fans, we're not keeping the same sound.
Yeah. Like
a lot of bands do. Slayer, as great as Slayer are, I am never going to sort of, they tried their hand at new metal.
Yeah.
Failed epically.
Yeah. Same with Megadeth.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Megadeth fan, but I know that Cryptic Writings is wank.
Yeah, no, it really is. But, and to keep a sound so fresh and for your fans to just love everything you do, either that's, dedication to the fans or, you are actually, doing something right with your art. You know? It's massive.
The point you picked up on there, like, if this was a debut album, this would be, from a band, it would be massive. The fact that Avenged Sevenfold had already released Waking the Fallen and City of Evil, both legitimate classic albums.
Oh, massively.
Do you think the bar was set too high? Do you think they were never going to reach it anyway?
It depends how you see it. I don't think the fact that the bar was ever set high, because there were bands at the time which were doing much better than what they were. But if you look at it as a keeping fresh, it was a fact that they weren't ever sort of raising the bar. They had the bar set, and as long as they hit that bar every time, then they're doing well.
Yeah.
So in a way, when you look at it, it was set high.
Yeah.
But they had to try and keep hitting it.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely. And I think they have tried. I think they've absolutely tried their best to go, do you know what? Let's do something different and let's keep this momentum going. I think a little bit of what's happened is City of Evil was a pole jump world record.
Yeah.
And then what's happened with their self-titled is someone sawed the pole in half.
Yeah.
So they've gone running up to it with all the best intentions, all the effort, and they've gone, I'm going to get over this fucker. And they've fallen fairly short.
Yeah. I think when I read last, I think it was in 2014, it only just sold over 1 million records.
Right, okay.
So, I think in a way, when you look at it from a metal perspective, it's still huge.
Oh, yeah.
That's still platinum selling. I think that's right, the millions of platinum. But, for a metal band, it's huge.
Yeah. I think, and I'm going to compare this a little bit, not directly compare it, but a situation that evolved in this same year. So, I think that the bar that they set with City of Evil, they were never going to achieve it with the next album. I think it was so massive. I think that album was so seminal and so
Well, for its
massive.
time, was a complete game changer.
It was. Everybody. It was everybody that wrote them off the first two albums were like, they're fucking emo goth twat kids. They couldn't deny it. There was so much like great stuff on it. There was so many riffs, there's so many solos. It was like a great melding of just straight up Metallica metal and Guns N' Roses. And who the fuck doesn't like those two things?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like. Well, I don't know what it's like because it would anger me too much to think of something that that people didn't like.
Yeah. I think when you look at it in the perspective and appreciation back to the rock and metal days, Guns N' Roses and Metallica are two, huge bands which everybody looked up to.
Yeah,
absolutely everybody. I mean, you look at any metal band and say you were not slightly influenced by Metallica.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt Heffy, I think, is possibly a huge Metallica fan.
Oh, massive. Yeah, massive. I mean, he said he's a massive Metallica fan, massive Maiden fan, massive Morbid Angel fan. So, yeah, he's an interesting guy, actually. It'd be cool to talk about him at some point in more depth, because he's got some really interesting takes on music and stuff.
Yeah.
But just sort of diverging again slightly back.
Yeah.
I think that this album is there unto the locust. I think it's a really good album.
It's a really high album.
I'd like to talk about that album at one point. Cause I'm not going to spaff my beans over it too. But lots of people give that a kick in. Now, any album that followed The Blackening, which is an album that I would...
It is just pure artwork.
Yeah. It is, anyone that says, I don't like The Blackening, will receive a kick in the shins from me.
Not that you have that inked on you or anything like that.
No, I love that album more than I could love a human baby. To steal a line from Will Ferrell.
Oh, amazing.
But talking about The Blackening, again, with this album, this album came out in 2007.
Yeah.
The Blackening came out in 2007. With an album that is that massive. I mean, The Blackening was... genre defined. It was generationally defined.
Everything to the side. Yeah.
Now, bearing in mind the very different styles of those two albums,
huge.
Was this always going to pale in comparison slightly?
I think it was always going to fall to the mark. Fall to a bit of Blackening, because I think when you look at it in a sense of traditional metal, the Machine Head have always kept to a traditional metal style, but have always made it massive. And in comparison to an experimental album like the Avenged Sevenfold self-titled album, it's never going to compare, because you got to think that Machine Head knew what they were doing. They had set that bar. They were on the pedestal. And were very firm-footed on it. Whereas Avenged Sevenfold were very staggering on their feet. We're going to still try different sounds. So therefore, they're still trying to find their feet. So for them to, when you look at it as a comparison, you can never compare the two, because Machine Head were always firm-footed. They knew what they were doing. But
people are going to compare them, because they're two such massive bands. And don't get me wrong, I know that Avenged trajectory has taken off more than Machine Head's. But I did a little bit of digging, and I looked at the Kerrang list from this year, and I looked at the Metal Hammer's top albums. Now, it makes sense that where they place for Kerrang. It was so they placed number 16 in Kerrang's.
And when was this?
2007.
Oh, 2007. Yeah.
Now, that year, Machine Head was clearly number 1 in Metal Hammer. Avenged Sevenfold self-titled didn't feature in the top 50 albums in Metal Hammer.
Hammer. Wow.
Now, if you look at what came out that year, I had a little flick through it. There was things like around the sort of 20 mark, there was a new Man of War album.
Really?
There was obviously the Machine Head. There was lots and lots of quite traditional or classic metal.
So it's like a resurgence almost.
Yeah, I think by looking at it, there seemed to be a bit of a resurgence around that time of more traditional styles of metal, more traditional kind of, let's go backwards and look, let's have more Metallica type metal. And the sort of trad metal sort of thing. So with that in mind, it just got me thinking. I don't even think any band that released an album that was kind of a bit more radio friendly, and a bit more Guns N' Roses, a bit more Use Your Illusion, Guns N' Roses, big ballads, and things like that. I think they kind of set themselves up for a kick-in the first place.
Yeah. When you look at it and you just go, I don't know, it's just going back to the fact that they were still trying to try new sounds. And, they're wanting to give their fans something new after City of Evil. Because, again, going back to what I said at the beginning of, they cancelled their tour to write new music. So obviously they got sick to death of playing City of Evil.
Yeah.
That you cancel your tour in the fall to say, well, we're going to go back into the studio. You're going to piss off a lot of fans just saying, well, we bought tickets to come and see you, and now you're cancelling the tour because you want to go back to the studio. Yeah. But were they right in doing it? I think so.
Yeah.
Because again, you cannot, have a career of one sound.
No, I totally agree.
And this is what pisses me off again with, on a slight tangent, Metallica fans. They want the classic Metallica, Master of Puppets album, Ride the Lightning, and...
Says he wearing a Master of Puppets t-shirt.
Yeah, but my favourite album was And Justice for All.
Yeah, probably mine
but
too.
We'll discuss that again another day.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe Ride the Lightning. I don't know. They'd have to have a knife fight.
Yeah. But, Metallica to have the same sound, every album would be fucking boring.
Yeah.
But when you look at it in a sense of, you had the massive radio hit, which was the Black Album, huge radio ready. Then you had Load and Reload, again, sticking with radio friendly. Because that was huge American radio stuff, that was. And then you go to Saint Anger. Everybody fucking hated it because they tried something new.
Yeah.
And what's that?
I think everybody hated it because the fucking snare drum. Stupid, shitty snare drum.
Yeah, but...
Fucking hell, Lars.
Yeah, but that's just Lars on any album.
Yeah.
Not exactly brilliant.
Oh, well, no, but... No, he is a good drummer. I would stand up for Lars.
I'd happily stand up for Lars. But, again... That's the drummer battle side of things. But they tried something new. It failed on the fan perspective. But again, when that came out in the era it did, a lot of kids liked that album. Because it was different. And for us to 4 albums in on Avenged Sevenfold, and they're still trying their hand at something new, and it got pushed to a side because their fans didn't like it. And for the kids who were growing up at that time to go, Almost Easy was a huge song. I think you could go on for, forever battling this between the fans to the kids at the time to, however, you want to see it. But I still think this stands up, and it really does hold its own.
Yeah.
I can't see it being a massive failure at all.
No, I agree. I think this album was brave. I think they tried something different.
Yeah.
And I don't think they perfected it, but I think they did this style of thing far better than a lot of other people that tried it. And I think the fact that they are still around and that they are still making music and they're massive now,
selling out stadiums.
Yeah, that is down to the fact that they.
But coming back to, like you said,
change their style. That is the fact that they move on. They're not static.
That's like you said when it comes to them and Machine Head at the time. Both albums came out at the same time. Number 1 album goes to Machine Head. But what you go to see Avenged Sevenfold, they're either headlining Download or they're doing arenas around the UK at the moment. Yeah. And then you got Machine Head who release absolutely, once in a lifetime album. And they're only playing Southampton Guildhall and stuff like that. They're only playing small venues.
Yeah.
So
that's a very good point actually, because Machine Head Unto the Locust for Machine Head was a massive stumbling block.
It was.
It really set them back, and they've never recovered from it. Even with Bloodstone and Diamonds, which was fucking brilliant. Yeah. They've never recovered from that. Avenged, they got a bit of a kick in, but they picked themselves up, dusted themselves off, and now they're huge, legit headliners, legit like festival headliners, selling out arenas all over the world.
I mean, when you look at it in the fact that...
And they've done that with... I mean, the stage, they did that with... They dropped the album, like, they said, oh, we got an album out, here it is. There was no fanfare, there was no pissing about, there's nothing. That was all purely off people wanting to hear Avenged music.
Yeah, and, you know, a lot of this is done with, you know, obviously this album was produced by themselves.
Yeah.
And the other albums, I believe, they did produce as well with a producer.
Yeah.
So they've always had their hand at making it theirs.
Yes.
You know, and without doing so, they've never lost the way, really. You know, they've always stuck true to themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the most impressive thing about this album is probably this... like every Avenged album, this is... and could only have been made by Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think you're going to look at it any other way.
No.
But, no, I was just trying to find some other albums that came out around the time. A few months previously, you had The Crusade by Trivium.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that in itself, I think those two bands were really on top of things at the time.
Yeah.
Because those two bands were the number one bands at the time. You know, with City of Evil coming out and The Crusade thing following. You know, I think you just got to look at it in a sense. It's its own, in a way, there is no subgenre to it, but as an album goes, they are both in a genre of their own for the time that it was released and for the fan group.
Yeah.
You know, the fan groups were, you know, if you looked at it again, at the fact that I think around that time, I remember having an argument with some friends that the old metalheads hated this sort of stuff. Absolutely hated it. Because they didn't see it as being traditional. But it was all a part of moving on. You know, the new wave of things are going to, you know, and that's no different between now when you look at things like, I mean, I'm not exactly a big fan of Pierce the Veil in Sleeping with Sirens.
No,
I think they're dog shite.
Yeah.
But that could be said at the fact that it's, again, a generational thing which has happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's a new generation of bands. They're going to sound different.
Yeah.
And you're never going to please anybody until there's another resurgence in the, you know, somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I was just having a little look through the 2007 albums, and yeah, like what you were saying, it harks back to that. There's so much trad metal on here, like traditional. Or, there's Machine Head. There's Down. Fucking great.
Oh, great band, yeah.
There's Megadeth. We're number 7 with United Abominations.
Yeah.
There's lots of much older bands. There's Ministry. There's High on Fire. There's Dimmu Borgir, there's
Crikey.
Electric Wizard, Shadows fucking Fall.
Shadows Fall?
Shadows Fall apparently got into the
well over done. This album. Wow.
Yeah, well done with that. I don't know how that happened. Blackstone Cherry, get in the
Blackstone
bin.
Cherry.
I'm guessing Man of War were number 27. Who in God's green earth in 2007 thought, I'm going to go and buy a Man of War album?
Anybody with a loincloth.
Yeah, fucking loincloths.
But no, I think as a whole, this album, I think, is experimental as it was. Just for me, I think it worked.
Yeah, I think it.
And I think it should still stand the time of being one of especially their albums, being one of the best ones that they've done. You know, because it was a sense of we are still trying to find ourselves 4 albums in, and I think they killed it.
I've got, sort of wrap up where we're at to.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in their back catalogue do you think you would put this album?
Where in their back catalogue?
Yeah.
For me, it's my favourite album they've done. But when you look at it, it depends how you see it. You seeing as like...
No, your favourite album. Whichever one you go. Nah, that is my favourite. Boom.
Yeah, no, I think for me, you know, because they're vulnerable.
Yeah,
and
fair.
To see a band vulnerable is what you want. They're stripped back. They're trying something new.
Yeah.
And you can see the progression of the next albums.
Fair.
And I think they nailed it with this. Absolutely nailed it. You know.
I think this is I'm not going to be as strong and say, yes, they've nailed it. I think it's fucking great. Yeah. I think this is a really solid album. I think it's a really good album. I think it might have been the first one I bought of theirs.
Yeah.
It's not my favourite. I think this probably comes in sort of midway, to be fair.
Midway?
Yeah, it's probably about halfway.
What would you put over it?
What would I put over it? I would put Waking the Fallen, City of Evil. Quite a lot, actually. Oh, yeah, actually, it would be quite a lot. I would also put The Stage above it.
Really?
This would probably have a bit of a punch-up with Nightmare.
Yeah.
Because I loved Nightmare. I thought it was a great album.
Oh, yeah, and I think that was more of their homage album to the Rev, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. So I think those two would kind of have a punch-up, and I don't know who would win in that. It would take me a little while to figure it out.
Enough. But, well, that's that. You know, I think the first review, that was solid.
Yeah, I think we've nailed that more than Avenged did this album.
Well, that's debatable, but you know, you guys can comment on this if you want. Head over to the Facebook page, Razor Metal Reviews. Give us a like, follow us. Also, again on YouTube, where this will be up. Subscribe and keep following on.
Yeah, and I did sign off by saying listen to more metal, you cunts, last time. I realised that's slightly harsh.
Fannies.
That'll do.
Right, listen to more metal, you fannies.